Hello and welcome to the brand new Football 365 show, brought to you by World Sportsbook Competition. Every week from February, we'll be bringing you your favourite writers and favourite features from Football 365, including winners and losers, Mailbox and Big Weekend. But first, a review of 2019 and a look ahead at what's to come in 2020 with Sarah Winterburn, Daniel Storey and Liverpool fan, comedian and all-round OK guy, Alfie Brown. We'll get straight into it with winners and losers. And given where they are in the league table, as we speak, and given that we've got Alfie on the sofa with us, it'd be madness to start anywhere other than Liverpool. Dan, how impressed have you been with Liverpool in 2019?
It's been pretty much faultless. It's as if the summer never happened. It's as if the disappointment of finishing second to Manchester City never happened. It is as if they are fully energised behind the goal of winning a maiden Premier League title, and I think they will do that. The manner in which players step up within the squad is pretty much extraordinary and probably unprecedented as far as Liverpool are concerned.
Yeah.
In the past, when they were great, it was always a core of 11. Now it's a core of 19, 20, and every time someone dips out, someone comes in and shows that they want to grab a place, whether it's Divock Origi, whether it's Naby Keita, whether it's Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, whether it's Joe Gomez. There's just so many options, and it's a squad that seems to be built in Jurgen Klopp's own image. It's a frightening thing for everyone else.
Yeah, and it has been the full year, hasn't it? It's not just been, 6 months of a season. It's been since January 2019 to the very end of it. It's actually been a bit boring. They've been metronomic. Alfie,
well,
what's
I
it been like?
disagree with that, actually.
Well, we've had so many conversations over the years, Alf,
Yeah.
where I've had to talk you down on a telephone call because you're so upset about Liverpool and how it's going. But this time, Alfie, that's not going to happen, is it?
It's all changed around. Well, January was actually the trickiest of months in 2019 because it started with losing at City on very fine margins, and then attritional snowy draws with Leicester and West Ham. And then since then, we've just been pulverising people. They're just the most fantastically relentless bastards. And I don't think I've ever, on balance, loved anything as much as I love this football team. And
I've got two kids.
Yeah, two kids. And fortunately, they're not sort of sentient enough to know how much more weight I'm putting on Liverpool Football Club than them and their upbringing.
But you've not won anything domestically yet, right?
You're right, mate.
But you're now completely confident that 2020 is going to be.
I'll never be completely confident. I feel I've got a dizzying sense of vertigo from being in a position to win something like this. It's what I've wanted for so many years.
To me, it feels like Liverpool, in seasons gone by, you'd be 1-1 with 10 minutes left, and you'd be thinking they might lose this game or they might get something out of it. But now I don't see anything other than, they're going to win this game. It feels like Ferguson's United days.
Well, that's the thing. It's gone from Fergie time to Jurgie time, as the saying goes, or Kloppage time, whichever you want.
Kloppage time I like as well.
I really like Kloppage but there is that. It's that complete relentlessness, and it's combined with a Manchester City team that have certainly dropped off, and a Leicester team that I don't think are quite there. So it's that combination. I agree with you. There's always the needling, nagging thought in the back of every football fan's mind that my team will stuff this up, but when it's combined with other teams falling away and that kind of psychological battering of every rival, I just don't see it. I understand why you do, but I just don't see it.
Well, if City were this far ahead, I wouldn't be here. I'd be doing something else.
Oh, okay, good. just checking. You'll be fine. Right, let's move on from Liverpool to another team that have been superb in 2019, and actually more impressive, Alfie, because they've done it over two different divisions. I'm talking, of course, about Sheffield United, and maybe specifically Chris Wilder here. Alfie, have you seen much of Sheffield United while they've been in the Premier League?
Yeah, I've loved watching Sheffield United. They for a team with such little possession, they use the moments on the ball to attack and savage the opponents like piranha fish. It's great to watch. And I love the organisation and I love the nous that's gone into it. And there's something sort of old school about the attitude of the team. Like it possesses still the soul of Warnock, but it but with added,
flourishes.
With added intelligence. Not that Neil Warnock isn't one of the finest football minds going.
But people say this all the time about them. People always categorise Sheffield United as being well organised and stubborn and resilient and you know, it's a pun on the city, I guess, but full of steel. But they're more than that, aren't they, Dan? They've got some real ability in that side, and they've got a manager who is at the cutting edge of football tactics, isn't he? Or isn't he? Maybe
he is. Last season, Marcelo Bielsa was the one, you know, raising him, pouring praise on him, and this season it's been Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola, and you cannot get more effusive praise than that.
Yeah.
I see them as almost as a sort of control experiment for what you can do out of great coaching, great preparation, great man management. You know, this is proof that every footballer has talent. The difference between the haves and have-nots, or the goods and the greats, is about the way they are managed, about the way they're cajoled, about the way they're looked after. And Wilder seems to have got all of that spot on. And we talk about Liverpool, you know, we talk about Liverpool having that relentlessness and a surprise when something goes wrong. Almost thinking the same with Sheffield United now. When they lose at home or when they concede more than one goal, we think, oh, that's unusual. It's Sheffield United.
Yeah, and I think Wilder could go on to manage at a higher level, because I feel like, and I don't know if I'm right about this, but when a manager goes up a level, it's the mentality of being part of a bigger club that finds you out more than the tactical side of it. You can adjust to playing with better players, and that doesn't make your life more difficult. It's the psychological torment that being manager of a big club puts you through. And Wilder seems like
I think it's that, and it's the management of egos, which is not something he abides in any way. You know, the one theme of that squad is, if you think you're bigger than me, you'll be out within minutes. And I think that's the only doubt about him stepping up, is what happens when he's managing those hugely well-paid players who, quite frankly, make their decisions on you in the first 2 or 3 training sessions. And if you have to win them back, it's a hard job.
But let's not get bogged down in concerns for the future. 2019's been brilliant for Sheffield United, and they thoroughly deserve to be in the winners category. Moving on, another winner for sure this year is Brendan Rodgers, who's had an interesting year, to say the least. Dan, what do you make of his move from Celtic? It now looks like an obvious decision, but at the time it wasn't.
I'm theorising here rather than knowing, but to me, I think he always wanted to manage a Big Four club again. He always felt he had that. I mean, Brendan Rodgers is a man who allows the chip on his shoulder to remain there and uses it as fuel for his promotion in his career. And he hated the fact that it didn't work out in the end at Liverpool, and he always wanted to get back there. And I think he saw Leicester as a stepping stone to that. It actually appears that Leicester have moved beyond at least 2 of those clubs.
That might be the destination. That might be
exactly right. And in doing so, he has already. He believed his reputation would only be redeemed if he went back to one of those clubs. Actually, he's pretty much done that already in 2019 at Leicester.
Yeah, I mean, Leicester, could you make an argument, Alfie, that they are better in this incarnation than they were when they won the league? Is this a better side than the league winning team?
I think they'll finish on more points.
What I asked.
I know, and I was giving you a Tony Blair-esque answer.
Thank you.
I think they seem like a more complete squad, and I think with that season it was a bit of an outlier, and they had a certain way of playing, and then everybody went, oh, that's how you deal with it. I sort of, broadly speaking, understand how to play against this mad Leicester team. Conte did it as well. Nobody could deal with the speed of the transition up the pitch and the shape of Chelsea, and then everybody sort of got on board with it and learned how to play against it.
It feels like it takes a couple of goes, a couple of seasons maybe to work out.
Well, this Leicester team can play in many more ways. And I love the fact that Soyuncu is so good and so gorgeous.
Why don't you describe Soyuncu to us, but in Brendan Rodgers' voice?
We young Calgar is a top player, and fights for his life and dies for the shirt, and
And is that sort of quality you get on the Football 365 show?
He reminds me of a sort of prince in a Disney film that is sort of not very clever, but towards the end you buy into the character. He's got that chiselled Disney prince look.
Yeah, that is the winners taken care of. We've done the winners, and I think we've done them justice.
Yes.
But now, sadly, it is time to go into the losers
into the bin.
Category, into the bin. And I think Alfie might be quite happy with this one, because the first one is Manchester United. They've had a pretty interesting and turbulent and exciting year, have they had, United, 2019?
Yes, the one place that they do deserve to be is the toilet. I don't really know what the solution is or how they get better. It's a really interesting club to look at. And also, if I think about where Liverpool were in the era of the Hodge, and what was going on at the club then, or how long it felt like Liverpool were away from anything good ever happening ever again.
Are you seeing that happen now with United?
Well, no, because they've got so much money that as soon as they get somebody who can think involved in some capacity.
You mean further up the ladder, or do you mean Solskjaer himself?
At any step on the ladder, it would be good to have somebody with some degree of nous or football acumen.
Right.
Well, not nice, it'd be rubbish, but
yeah.
Cheers.
But they started the year well, though, didn't they? I mean, Solskjaer had that fantastic run right the way up past the PSG game in the Champions League, and then what happened after that?
I think two things. Firstly, I think they were probably getting results that were better than the performances. But it was also clear that he'd gone in to replace a manager who had burned bridges within that squad and had effectively he'd gone on a mission of self-preservation and left everyone else out to dry. And Solskjaer brought them in and put an arm around them, and that worked. Yeah. But without having that long-term tactical acumen, and as Alfie says now, so you can't do that. You can't get by. And yeah, they're being found out. I don't blame Solskjaer, because I think every step of as you say, every step of that ladder is broken. I think that I've used it before in winners and losers, probably too much, but you can't moan and act surprised that the carpet is rotten and damp if there's a massive hole in the roof and you refuse to fix it. And every time it rains, everything gets wet and soaked. And that's exactly what's happening at Old Trafford.
And it's been the case since Ferguson left, let's face it. I mean, they've struggled to replace him. They've struggled to get any organisation going since David Gill left, which is important.
Yeah, but they've spent. I think they've spent nearly £1 billion on players since David De Gea was signed, and I don't think any of them have been unmitigated successes.
No,
I don't think any of them have. And that you either think every player is bad there, every player was the wrong one to sign, or you think there's something intrinsically broken in this club that makes them underperform. And it has to be the second.
Right, from one club struggling to replace a legend or a dynasty to another, and it's Arsenal, who are funny to watch. Is that the right word? They're funny to watch.
They are defensively kind of abysmal, aren't they? And there seems to be... There's a weird thing. Do you remember last season when Emery came in? So they looked quite good, and it's like they had the freedom. And I often think you see this when a team gets a new manager, is they sort of remember all the things that were good, or that they learned tactically from their previous manager, but they don't have to hang out with that guy that they grew to hate. They remember some of the goals they were scoring last season, Arsenal. It was incredible football they were playing. And then they sort of got to know Unai Emery better, and Unai Emery got to know them better, and they went, oh, I hate this sport again. The defence is it's a low-level Premier League.
But is it not more obvious than that? Is it not a thing they've had for now probably over a decade, where we've all said, from the outside looking in, Arsenal need some steel in that midfield and in their spine, and they still haven't got it? I mean, they brought in Torreira, and it's not really...
Yeah, but again, it's similar to Manchester United, though. You know, you bring in those players who are highly rated elsewhere, and at what point do you ask why the club drags down the players rather than those players being able to drag the club up? I agree, I don't think they have enough leaders, I don't think they have enough characters, but they're not a club that have ever gone out and bought those players to be leaders. It happened because the football was good enough and the mood was good enough that they became leaders almost kind of by osmosis rather than by design. And until they get it right above that, until they work out what they want to be with an identity, then it just feels like you're plugging gaps, basically.
Yeah.
And they are in trouble, or they are in danger of becoming a mid-table team, aren't they?
Yeah, January 2019, the start of the year, Deloitte do this money league and look at the revenues of all the biggest clubs in Europe, and for the first time Arsenal dropped out the top four for about 20 years.
Right.
So you cannot continue underachieving over and over and over again and expect to avoid consequence, and they haven't now.
No. Our final loser of 2019 is another... No, it's not Alfie. Don't point at Alfie. It's another team who have had, upheaval all over the club. Manager in particular is Everton, and maybe particularly Marco Silva. Alfie, why has it been such a hard year for Everton this year?
I look at the team now in its current, and it's got It's got quality players.
They've got some good players, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought Alex Iwobi was better than the amount of ridicule he received.
Yeah, but that's Arsenal fans. It's not real.
No, okay. What, do they live in some sort of bubble of
Arsenal fan TV?
demented cynicism? I've never seen it. Is it good?
Probably.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why they're in such a mess, but I do think that they're, as I said earlier, the weight of a club can bear down on the manager's soul, and I think quite often that happens to them. And being in that city with Liverpool, who are, good, is not an easy thing. So they struggle for this identity, what they want from themselves as a club. And I think what they want is, they want a European to come in and play Sam Allardyce style football.
Right.
But they don't want Sam Allardyce to do it because that isn't sexy enough. They want, Marco Silva to come in and play a style of football that means that they get about and are solid. And also they have had bad luck with injuries. The midfield is completely depleted, and beautiful Andre Gomez is sadly ill with leg injury.
Yeah, I think ill is the word.
Dr. Brown.
Thank you very much. My diagnosis. Yeah, I don't understand why. I don't understand what's happened really. Do you have a more neutral?
Well, I think Silva is a manager. I think Everton need an inspiration, and I don't think Marco Silva is an inspirer of men. Yeah. I think he is a very thoughtful man who probably was damaged, slightly watermarked by Hull City and Watford, and got that job and had to take it. But I think probably would have been better going back to Portugal or whatever and sorting out his reputation. I just think they've picked bad managers, and they're another team that doesn't really seem to have any identity.
But new manager, what do you make of him?
I think it's an odd appointment, I have to say. I don't think it's a natural fit. Carlo Ancelotti has always been a man who has been more successful when taking over elite clubs that just needed someone to carry it on. He's never been a builder of teams. Yeah. And he's also never, probably since Parma, never taken over a non-elite club.
It's quite a strange one, isn't it?
I think Everton have just gone for the biggest name they could get.
But he is always someone that's had the ability to identify who the best 11 players are and get them all into one team at the same time. And that, I think, they'll at least find useful.
Yeah, sure. Just to wrap it up then, do you think Marco Silva, one-word answers, will he get another job in the Premier League? Dan?
No.
Alfie?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's
fine.
Democracy.
50-50. Good lads. So that is the winners and losers for 2019. We now move on to Mailbox. This is your opportunity at home to get in touch with the show. Right, time for Mailbox. This one is from Paul, who's a Spurs fan in Tunbridge Wells. This is after Spurs beat Olympiacos. He says, employing Jose is a masterstroke that could well move Spurs on another level in class. There is no way Poch subs Dyer for Eriksen tonight, not after 30 minutes, probably not until at least 65! ! It's that kind of proactive, tactical move that will see us progress further under Mourinho. I mean, pick the bones out of that one.
Depends how you define class, I suppose, in terms of, will he make them a better team instantly? Yes, I think probably. Will he leave a legacy behind him that is not necessarily tasteful? Probably.
Definitely.
Yeah. On the subs thing, I mean, it's a bit harsh on Pochettino. If you look at their Champions League run, when they got to the final, late goal against PSV winner, late winner against Inter, late goals against Ajax. It's not like he didn't draw anything out of them late in the game. So I think it's a bit harsh.
I think it's incredibly harsh. I'm a Jose fan. Alfie, what do you make of this?
I don't know. I'm a bit kind of puzzled by it. I don't know whether they're hoping to get him in so that everybody whose contract is about to expire stays, or what's the thinking behind it? Because as soon as everybody leaves, there's going to be a big rebuilding job, the like of which Jose's never had, and he's always tried to convince everybody that he's different this time, and it'll all stop, and have me back, I'm changed.
Is there any way, Dan, that Jose leaves on good terms?
Only, I think, if he believes that doing his normal trick will eventually define his reputation. If he's no longer seen as a serial winner, but a serial bridge burner, then he might decide to change.
This one comes from Lewis on Busby Way.
Oh yeah.
I imagine Manchester United. This is in August. Lewis says, following Sarah's prediction of a Liverpool title win, I'd like to offer an alternative viewpoint. I think City will win it comfortably, probably by 10 points. They're just a ruthlessly brilliant team. What should be interesting is what happens to City in a year or two when Pep rides off into the sunset and Silva, Aguero, Fernandinho and co. are all over the hill and need replacing. The rebuild will be huge and incredibly difficult. So this is Lewis on Busby Way suggesting that the future is not that rosy for Man City.
It depends who they've got a good system in place. They've got all sorts of very talented and crucially unpronounceable people working at the head of their organisation, and it means that they'll know that Pep's brain's about to burst. They know that they're not unfamiliar with what is happening. They know that they've got great scouts and endless money. It's not going to be that difficult for them to be. So they'll get Pochettino, anybody?
Why not? Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, maybe Julian Nagelsmann. Or is an option. But yeah, Pep Guardiola has said, as soon as he finished at Barcelona, he said, I had 4 years. How can anyone expect me to do any more than that? It ruins you. Yeah. It drains you. And 2019-20 is his 4th season at Manchester City. So if they haven't predicted it, they're fools because they've seen the precedent.
And City are not like United. They have contingencies in place. They're very, very well run, not just on the field, off the field, in terms of community stuff as well. They know what they're doing. They're really good at it. They're really effective. Like Alfie says, those unpronounceable people upstairs, they know they've got a list of people already they want to bring in.
Yeah, they do. The question is whether one of them, or the natural successor was Mikel Arteta, who has now left for Arsenal. So that might cause a bit of a storm. Pep Guardiola was a bit angry about it, and probably for that reason. But yeah, if they have to have succession plans in place. Every good club does, and they are a good club.
Surely they'll have known that, Arteta will have gone, I wonder if I'll get the job here. Will I get the job here? And they'll have gone, no, actually, Billy Bollocks is going to come in and do it. And then he'll have...
Is he taking it?
Billy Bollocks,
yeah. Harry Redknapp's nephew.
Sweeters from Chelsea, Sweeters, Chelsea fan, this is from November. He says, Chelsea may not win anything for the next year or two, but I couldn't care less. They're bloody great to watch. I'm loving this young, talented Chelsea side and our intelligent, dedicated but inexperienced manager. I just hope he gets the time to build a dynasty without the intense pressure to win instant silverware as Klopp has been allowed to at Liverpool.
Yeah, it's a difficult balance though, because while Chelsea weren't able to buy players, they had a transfer ban, there was no choice. The pathway was clear. It was Lampard and Morris with a mandate for bringing through youth players. As soon as that transfer ban goes and they're allowed to buy players,
it's a huge issue, isn't it?
Yeah, and you've got choice, and choice can be liberating or it can be complicating, and that is the big test of this new era at Chelsea. You don't abandon short-termism when you're not allowed to. When you're allowed to abandon it, that's when the test comes.
And this is another metric by which you can judge a manager, is how he does with recruitment. And he did do well at Derby with recruitment, but
was helped out by loans.
Was really helped out with loans, and this is a different ball game entirely. This is unlimited money, bring in whoever you want.
How well did he do at Derby? I mean, I watched limited. I mean, I'm asking. I'm not telling you how he did at Derby.
I'm not telling you.
Okay, well, keep it a secret.
I will do. Yeah.
Okay.
He did. Have
you got it written down there?
What's Lewis saying? Lewis, help me out. He did well at Derby. What he's very good at is he was able to bring a group of players together very quickly and get them on board, and I was impressed with that. And that's what he's really done with Chelsea as well. But it is easier, like Dan says, it's easier because you've not got new people coming in all the time. If you've got just a group of players, you can batten down the hatches and say, right, it's us against the world.
It's so hard to tell how good a manager he is after this. Obviously everybody has lost their minds with excitement about the fact that they recognise the bloke who's in charge. But I mean, however exciting that is and however much anybody can lose their minds about it, it's quite hard to tell how workably effective he is as a manager in such a short space of time.
Yeah.
And it makes him harder to sack because everybody adores him so much. And also, I think removing Hazard means that Jorginho can play more and all of the players suit. And I saw you look away, so fuck you.
That's it for Mailbox. Thank you for sending in your letters. If you've got anything you want to tell us or anything you want to get off your chest, email us at theeditor@football365.com. Guys, thank you for joining us. Daniel Storey.
Thank you.
And Alfie Brown.
Thank you.
Up next, we've got Big 2020 with editor Sarah Winterburn. Right, we finally got rid of those two. Thought we'd never leave. And we can now welcome to the studio Sarah Winterburn, editor of Football365. Sarah.
Hello. The talent's here now.
The talent's finally arrived.
Yeah, got rid of those jokers.
I know, yeah. Thanks for coming.
No problem at all.
This section is called Big 2020. Normally it's Big Weekend, as it is on the site, but as it's a review show today, just Big 2020. So a look ahead to the year coming up. Let's start though with Liverpool, because it does look pretty ominous for everybody else in the country and Europe.
I think it's pretty big for them, because I don't know whether you've heard, but they haven't won the league title for a while.
Right, and they haven't mentioned that.
No, nobody's mentioned it.
No.
But that's the monkey off the shoulder business, isn't it? And I was talking to a Liverpool fan the other day who was trying to simultaneously hold the two opinions that they're going to win it by March, because they're absolutely brilliant, and also it won't be an absolute cock-up if they mess it up. It's like, you cannot simultaneously hold those two positions.
That can't, that doesn't work.
But Liverpool fans are going through this weird thing, aren't they, where they like tell you that they're best in the world and they're so brilliant and they're fantastic, but we might not win it, you know. And there's this kind of fear, isn't there? And of course it would be the most wonderful thing in the world if they didn't win it.
Is that you saying that, or Football365
Oh,
saying
it
that?
would be the funniest thing ever, wouldn't it?
It would be funny.
If they got into this position where they look genuinely unassailable and they cock it up from here.
A lot of hostility towards Liverpool, I feel here.
Oh, not at all, no.
You sure?
Just a love of amusing scenarios,
Yeah.
and that would be beyond anything we've seen, I think, in the Premier League.
I can't think of a team that has deserved to win, by this point in the season, a team that has deserved to win it so clearly, as Liverpool.
I think City 2 years ago, I think they looked so far ahead of everyone else that you just couldn't conceive of them not winning it.
No.
I think obviously last year was closer, but the year before they were absolutely extraordinary. But I think this is probably on a par with that you look at Liverpool and you think, well, just give them it now.
Yeah.
It feels like that. It feels like we could just give them it now.
It does feel like that. I think the difference with Man City was that you didn't know how to beat Man City. With Liverpool, you know how to beat them, but you just can't. You can't do it because they've just got power all over the place.
Yeah, you still watch certain performances of Liverpool and kind of go, I don't really understand why this is working. There isn't that sort of irresistibility that there was about Man City 2 years ago, and yet there is an invincibility about them that we don't often see.
Yeah.
So you watch them sometimes and think, that midfield doesn't really work. Or Mo Salah on an off day looks like he can't control the ball. And then they just go, oh, bang, bang, bang. And you go, oh, yeah, that'll be it.
Yeah.
That's it.
But we're very fickle, though, in the industry. I mean, I remember people a year ago saying, Man City, this is the best team we've ever seen in domestic football. This is unreal. And, they were justified. They won everything domestically. They were fantastic. But less than sort of 6-7 months later, we're saying the same thing about Liverpool. And in 6 months' time, might be saying the same thing about
It's the nature of the beast, isn't it? Everything is always the best thing ever, or the worst thing ever.
Let's get rid of this hyperbole. Let's stop doing that.
Oh my God, what?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's a crazy idea.
I'm saying now on Football365.
We are not going to get perspective now. We've been doing this for 20 odd years. We are not doing perspective. No, okay. Everything's got to be the best of the worst, hasn't it? That's the way of the media. Now that's what I call music. The best ever. Now, ever.
Yeah.
And it's like that with football. So we'll be talking now about, all the talk now, of course, is this Liverpool side better than or as good as the Arsenal Invincibles? Impossible to know.
Better. Not impossible.
Oh, jeez. He's gone. He's gone.
Done it. Hyperbole is the worst thing that's ever happened to anyone ever.
100% agree with that, yeah.
Yeah. Right, moving on. Man City. Are they going to put all their eggs into the Champions League basket and forget the domestic side of things now? Or
I think they can't forget it altogether, can they? I think the fear of sort of dropping out of that top four, which although it seems pretty far-fetched, it could happen. But you would think that let's say they've got a dozen eggs. I think they're going to leave 2 in the Premier League.
Okay.
Leave 1 each in the domestic cups, maybe.
Yeah.
And that leaves, oh God, I've got an A-level in maths.
8 eggs left.
8 eggs for the Champions League,
But a couple of them will break, always happens.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
6 eggs.
I think, the dream isn't it, that they're going to end up sort of winning the Champions League. But again, I can't see it happening.
Yeah, see, what I think about City, and this isn't an original opinion, none of them are that come out of me, but they play a different way in Europe. And Pep seems to play a different way, much more cautious. That Spurs game last season.
Massively
right?
overthinks. You're always on dodgy ground, sort of criticising one of the greatest coach ever in the history of football.
Wow.
But there are certain games where you just think, why have you thought this through so much? Like that Spurs game was ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you'd have gone into that, Spurs were already in a sequence of quite poor form in the Premier League. They were 3 or 4 months into a bad spell.
Yeah.
And yet, if Guardiola had gone into that game and said quite, objectively, my team is better than that team. Let's just go and play them off the park.
Yeah.
But
like they do in the league, every single time.
Like they would have done every time they turned up. And instead there's this overthinking.
Yeah.
And he did the same a little bit against Liverpool in the Premier League before Christmas. I did it a good bit again against Man United. And you're thinking, I don't really understand where that's come from.
Yeah.
You know, after 2 years of winning the Premier League, why don't they just walk into games going, we're better than you.
Absolutely.
We're better than you. And at their peak, Arsene Wenger's Arsenal used to do that. He didn't used to have to say anything to them anymore. They'd just go on.
Just go and play your game.
Go and play your game and do it. And they did it more often than not because they literally knew we're better than you.
Will Man City strengthen at centre-back in the transfer window?
I think they have to do. I think the crisis is probably sort of over because I think Laporte's kind of on his way back.
Yep.
But even before Laporte got injured, there's obviously an argument that they should have strengthened in the summer, and they certainly did. The thing is, bizarrely with Man City, even though they're thought of as this sort of free spending sort of behemoth kind of figure, they are quite cautious in terms of they won't spend stupid money. I mean, you might disagree with me and say they've spent stupid money on fullbacks.
Well, they spend just less than the world record on every position,
well,
and then we don't break any records, lads.
They struggle to spend. They don't want to spend. You know, they go in for Mahrez, and Leicester say we want 90 million. They go no, 60 million, and then they wait.
Right.
And then,
or the Maguire thing.
Yeah, the Maguire thing, which
Yeah.
they're absolutely right with Maguire. He isn't worth 85 million quid by a mile.
Right.
And they were right to do that. And obviously you might argue that Maguire would have done a better job than John Stones or would have done a better job than Nicholas Otamendi. Yes, you're right on that on a short-term basis, but is he worth 85 million quid? No, he's not. And City do make those kind of decisions all the time where they pull out of things and say, no, we're not paying that. You know, one point in being his Alexis Sanchez one, wasn't it? They looked at Alexis Sanchez and his agent said, we want 400k a week. Not a chance. So I think they will strengthen. Will they pay silly money? Probably not. So it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility to enter February without them doing anything if they don't think the value's there.
Okay. Well, a team that definitely needs some mid-season strengthening, I would suggest, is Manchester United.
What you see with Man United, certainly at this time of year, is the messages are coming out. They're briefing the media all the time saying,
yes,
we're interested, we're interested, we're interested. And so it looks like they're busy. It looks like they're kind of doing things behind the scenes. But what they're saying is, we're interested, but it's really difficult. It's like, oh, we'd like to sign James Maddison, but it's really difficult. Yeah. We'd like to sign, you know, whoever, but it's really difficult.
But they do this at the end of the last transfer window over the summer. A day or 2 days later, they came out with the same stuff. And the fans were saying, well, you've just had 3 months to sign players. Why haven't you done it? And why would we believe that you'd do it in the 1 month
mantra of it's
mid-season?
difficult is ridiculous.
Of course. They're Manchester United.
Yeah. But they want to play both hands, though, don't they? They want to play the hand that says we're the biggest club in the world. Yeah. Though it's brilliantly Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said we're the biggest club in the world in our own heads, which is fantastic, isn't it? you know, he's written the punchline for us there. They want to play that card, but then they also want to play the card of, oh, it's really difficult to do deals. It's really difficult to do deals.
Poor old us.
Do you know what? It's not. You know, look at Liverpool buying Van Dijk. Yes, it cost a lot of money, but it is the transfer that absolutely transformed that club in one hit because it was the right transfer at the right time. When was the last time Man United made the right transfer at the right time? That's
right. There's just been mismanagement throughout, hasn't there, for 5-6 years now.
They are on funny ground at the moment. They really are. I mean, there's a certain truth to it that you probably aren't going to get Leicester to sell you James Maddison. You probably aren't going to get Villa to sell you Jack Grealish.
You're definitely not going to get either one of those.
No.
Definitely not. I can tell you that now.
But the problem with Man United at the moment is they're trying to sell this vision of young British players, young British players, young British players. That's probably not what they need right now.
No. They need some established world-class players.
They've got loads of young British players.
Yeah.
And, you know, watch them play. They're pretty awful, mostly. What they could do is something better, something bigger, something older, possibly. But whether that happens, we'll just be left, you know, end of January, they'll say, oh, we tried, we really tried. We're very ambitious, but we didn't quite get anything over the line. Yeah. And we'll go, yeah, we've heard that before, mate.
Well, from one stalwart of the Premier League to some new boys potentially coming up. Championship looks quite exciting this early in this year. West Brom and Leeds look like, nailed on?
Yeah, I would say nailed on. I mean, you know, as a Huddersfield Town fan, you know,
I'm sorry.
Second only to Liverpool cocking it up would be Leeds cocking it up from now. Would be fantastic.
Funnier, I'd say funnier, as a Derby fan.
Yeah, probably funnier. But yeah, those two teams look nailed on, and also the brilliant thing about it from a Premier League point of view is they both look like they would compete. I think that's, you know, what we want to see a clubs coming up. Though sometimes clubs surprise us. No one ever thought Sheffield United were going to compete. They did. They have. Leeds are great to see. Everyone, you know, every time anyone watches Leeds, they sort of fall a little bit in love with them, I think, unless you're a Town fan or a Derby fan.
Yeah, but you're right. There is something also very romantic about that club. They're a proper club who should be in that top division, and now they've got a manager who completely matches that.
Yeah,
and as long as he's there, I can't see them trailing off necessarily. They're going to go up this season, and I think they're going to really establish themselves next season.
Certainly, if there's a bit of investment in there, if there's they are, every cliche in the world, isn't it? The Premier League club in all but name and all that nonsense, but they could under him become something again.
Yeah,
it could genuinely become something and establish themselves and not be a yo-yo club and not have that kind of. You get the feeling probably West Brom would still do 2 seasons up, 2 seasons down, whatever. But Leeds, there is something there. Obviously, there's this massive fan base. There's this massive sort of history behind them and romanticism about them that they could well establish themselves. And I would, even though personally don't have a great deal of affection for them, as a journalist, I would much rather see them in the Premier League than a Bournemouth or a Burnley or
taking names.
Oh, they can go for me.
I'm happy for them to be in. I want all teams to be in the Premier League. I want
all of them.
I want 92 teams.
All just playing each other twice.
Yeah.
And then you're going to ask me if they can win the Champions League.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so West Brom and Leeds, we think going up. We don't.
I'd be very surprised from here.
Yeah, don't send us hate mail if they don't. But going down, then you've mentioned there some clubs you wouldn't mind seeing the back of.
Mind
Do you think Bournemouth are in serious danger?
I think they're in massive trouble. Yeah. I think they're in massive trouble.
So are they definitely one for you going down? Who's definitely going down? Norwich are going down.
Norwich definitely gone. I think. Yeah. I think they are unsavable. Watford have confusing the hell out of me. I don't. We thought they were gone. Who knew that they just needed shouting at by a PE teacher, which I think is.
We all need that sometimes.
I pay for that, to be honest. So, I think they might still go. I'm not sure.
I need definite answers here.
Definite answers.
This is big 2020. This is we're looking ahead.
Definite answers.
Who's definitely going down?
Liverpool. No. Norwich. Okay, Watford are going to go, and I think stick my neck out Bournemouth.
This is 2020. This isn't just the season to the end.
I think they'll
now.
go very well in Championship at the end of 2020.
I think they're really.
I'm tipping them for promotion.
So you've heard it here first. We now know for sure who's definitely going down this season, and of those who are also coming up again next season.
We can do the whole decade if you want.
I don't want to do that. Sarah Winterburn, absolute pleasure having you on the show today.
Thank you.
We'll be back on a weekly basis from February here on the Football 365 show. Until then, goodbye.